On today's episode of Two Broads Talking Politics, I'm speaking with Jonathan Welch and Alex Mohajer from the Stonewall Democratic Club, discussing the new National Vote at Home initiative. And special shout out today to our guest editor, Marie Kent. Thanks, Marie. Hi, everyone. This is Kelly with Two Broads Talking Politics, and I'm on today with Jonathan Welch from the Stonewall Democratic Club. Jonathan is the, now I'm going to forget what you just told me you were, Director of Produced Media, something like that,
you
for
got
the
it.
Stonewall
Yes.
Democratic Club, and the co-executive producer of the National Vote at Home initiative. So welcome, Jonathan.
Thanks, Kelly. It's so great to see you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. So let's start with just what is the Stonewall Democratic Club, and tell me a little bit about its mission.
Sure. So the Stonewall Democratic Club is the nation's oldest progressive feminist LGBTQ political organization. We are mostly based in Los Angeles, but we've started to take on more of a national platform, especially with this election. So our main goal is to advance queer people in politics, whether that be people who are getting elected or appointed to office or people who are just participating in the political process from voting. We have broadened that scope, of course, because we just want to reach all people who are eligible to vote, especially in this election, with the concerns that matter to queer people and to people of color and to women. Like, we're very concerned with all progressive politics.
What are some of the issues specifically that, you know, if people are sort of thinking about what issues might matter to queer people? Obviously, all issues are going to matter to queer people because they're people. But what are issues that might be really specific to the groups that you're representing?
Well, specifically, I mean, take a look at things that have happened within the past few years since Donald Trump has become president. Of course, you know, the ability for queer people to adopt children has been under fire. We just had a major victory in which queer people can't be discriminated against in the workplace. They can't be fired for being queer. That is something that, even though we just recently scored that victory in the Supreme Court, that's something that could easily go away. Like, all of the things that we have on the books now can easily go away if the GOP gets their way, if the Trump administration gets their way. So really, you know, our rights are under assault, and that goes for everybody. I mean, it's not just queer people, it's women having to deal with reproductive health and discrimination. It's discrimination against people of color. These are all issues that, you know, that we have our eyes on and that we're making sure we fight for, we fight to protect those rights.
So I noticed that the Stonewall Democratic Club does some endorsements. What are the kinds of candidates that the group endorses? You know, how do they decide who is going to be endorsed?
Sure. So we go through a healthy endorsement process in which we take a look mostly at the local candidates. We're a Los Angeles-based organization, so most of our people are located here in Los Angeles County, or at least, you know, around Southern California. So we take a look at all of the candidates that are running in local races to make sure that they match up with our values. And in often cases, we have people who work on the campaigns, or the candidates themselves will come and talk to us. So we put out a questionnaire to those candidates and make sure that they fill that out. And then they have the opportunity to come speak to us at our monthly meetings. And then we vote as an organization on whether or not to endorse those candidates. So, you know, certainly with some of the races that we have out there now, we have some Senate races. We, of course, have the presidential race. We make sure that
there's a presidential race going on.
God,
who knew?
In a way, it's like, I wish it wasn't. Here we are. Yeah. We can't escape it. We have 52 days to go as of this recording, which just gives me chills. But yeah, so, we take a look at all of those races because not only do we have to get Joe Biden elected, but we have to flip the Senate. We have to hold the House. It's imperative that we flip legislative races in states where we don't necessarily, have a presence, but we're still interested in those races. So we ensure that as long as it comes up, it's something that we'll take into account.
You're the director of produced media. So what does that mean?
Yeah, well, it's actually a new role. So I took on the role in February, just before the pandemic. And so
just before produced media became really, really important.
Exactly. And that also changed the way that we looked at produced media, right? Because before, when I started, I thought, okay, well, this is a great opportunity for us to produce live shows where we actually go out and we're able to sit in have an audience and sit on a stage and talk to each other. And we can have like a live game show with interviews and and then of course, maybe we can create some sketches, we can incorporate comedy into politics, we can do all kinds of things, and we can have guests. None of that can happen right now because we're doing everything over Zoom, or it can happen over Zoom. But since we're all remote, it kind of changed the way that I had to look at my role. So we launched, we have a couple of multimedia initiatives at the Stonewall Democratic Club. We've had a podcast for about a little over a year called Stonewall Spotlight. It is our flagship podcast that's hosted by Marcus Lovingood and Mackenzie Hussman, who are two very dedicated board members of Stonewall. And we treat that as like a monthly news magazine podcast. So it dives into certain issues with just a very creative look at politics. So love that podcast. You can go check that out. And then we also created a weekly show called The Read Down, which we put out on YouTube live every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific. And that
live is scary. I love being able to
edit. Yeah, live is scary. As we were talking before we started recording, we were talking about, of course, how bad our Wi-Fi can be. So we have had several snafus that have to do with Wi-Fi on the show, but we just roll with it and we get through. We have a conversation. There's 4 of us on the show, and we rotate who's on there with special guests every week. So we've brought that into the fold. And then, of course, why I'm here talking to you today, we're talking about the National Vote at Home initiative, and that has been a huge multimedia undertaking for our club, and we're super proud of that. So really, my role touches all pieces of produced media, whether it be something that you listen to or something you watch. We're trying to get people out there. We're trying to get eyes and ears on some of the issues and some of the races that we care about.
I love it. So tell me then about the National Vote at Home initiative. What's the idea behind this, and sort of how are you trying to achieve that?
Yeah, so we chose 16 states that scare the shit out of me. 16 states that, and in a good way, because I think that something happened in 2016 that awakened something in people who pay attention to politics a lot less than I think some of us political nerds do. So I consider myself a political nerd. I am watching, the news. I'm reading constantly. I'm looking at the polls. So I know what's happening. And I recognize that a lot of my friends don't. But we've seen a lot of those people who took politics for granted now changing their minds and taking a look at what they can do and how they can become activists in their own right. And it's very exciting, if anything. So, there are 16 states that we looked at that have the ability to change the face of this country if we're looking at January 2021. We have the top 3, of course, Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, the trifecta, and then others that kind of have that effect. So this is a multimedia project. And what we decided to do was take a look at those 16 states, take a look at the parameters around voting by mail, or as we call it, vote at home. And, what the deadlines are when you're going to get your ballot, when you need to postmark your ballot, what happens once you receive the ballot. So we put it out to 16 different people. We have celebrities like Deborah Messing and Kristen Johnston and Linda Carter also. The original Wonder. I mean, come on, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman's on board, and she's talking about it.
Wonder Woman wants you to
Wonder
vote.
Woman, and she targeted her home state of Arizona. And so we put these videos out over the course of 16 days. Right now, we're like kind of right in the middle of the campaign. We started on September 2nd. And these are 2-minute, 10-second videos that are easily digestible, easy to share on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And we're rolling out with a new video every day until the 16th.
So, what are you hoping happens with these videos? What's the ultimate goal of getting those videos out there?
Well, I think that first of all, take a look at the administration right now and what they're saying. I mean, when the pandemic hit, I think one of the thoughts that happened was, of course, like what's happening with my job, what's happening with my health, what's happening with my family, but then what's happening with the election? The election's coming up in November. What are we going to do? And at that point, states, secretaries of state, city clerks, county clerks, everybody kind of went to work to figure out a system around how to vote by mail, pretty much all across the country. So we started to come up with that and started seeing that framework come together. And as that started to come together, you started to see Donald Trump attack the very idea of voting by mail, and then start to attack the U.S. Postal Service with Louis DeJoy as Postmaster General, just starting to dismantle some of the operational efforts of the Postal Service, which is insane because it's more than just voting. I mean, this is how people get paid. This is how people get their prescriptions, how people keep in touch with each other during a pandemic. Like, we love sending each other cards and packages and things like that. And if we can't do that, then come on, right?
How people get their Joe Biden signs in the mail, I should point out.
And that is very important because you will notice, I was talking about this recently, like you see the Trump merch everywhere. Mm-hmm. And it's very culty in a way because it's not, a lot of his supporters will wave a Trump flag before they wave an American flag. And you're starting to see that more. And that's frightening. So all of, the emblazonment of Trump gear, we have to counter that with Biden gear. We need our Biden signs. We need our banners. We need our bumper stickers. All of those things are coming in the mail, and we're starting to see that being attacked. We're starting to see the mail slow down. So what we wanted to do is to make sure that everybody who has opted to vote by mail knows that that is a safe option. It doesn't matter what this administration tells you. It is not if the idea of fraud in the mail system is nil, right? It's like 0.001%. And of course, now Donald Trump is encouraging people to commit mail fraud, so I'm laughing about it because I'm trying not to cry, but he's,
and it's too early in the day to start drinking.
I know. My God. Although I wouldn't judge anyone who did. But, I just feel like there is all this misinformation out there. We needed to create a system to get the right information in the hands of the voters. So that's why we decided to do this. And we decided to do this by video because, of course, you can read what the parameters are, but it's so much easier on social media if you're just sharing a video, or if you see that your friend shared a video, you're going to click on it and watch it. You see Wonder Woman on a video about voting, you're going to click on it, and that is actually the experience we've had since we've been releasing the videos. We've had well over 1 million impressions on Twitter. And I think over 12,000 people we're compelled to believe have actually clicked on the link in order to get more information on how to register to vote since we launched the project. So we're very, very pleased with that result. We are, of course, putting these videos out there so that they can be digested as the campaign rolls along, from now until Election Day. So all that information is out there and accessible.
So you mentioned Twitter. Is it on other social media as well?
It's everywhere. So it's Twitter, it's Facebook, it's on Instagram. You can find us at Stonewall Dems on all of those platforms, or the Stonewall Democratic Club on Facebook. And it's on YouTube, youtube.com/Stonewall Democrats. So you can find it anywhere.
And was there anything, as you were researching these deadlines and things and getting these videos put together, was there anything that surprised you about any of the states? Are there sort of really big differences between these different states that you're looking at?
There are. We did have to mix the message up depending on the state. So Texas is a really good example because in Texas, the only way that you can really vote by mail is if you are over 65, if you have a disability, if you are in jail, but otherwise eligible to vote, or if you're serving overseas. Mm-hmm. So we had to really tailor that message for that state in particular, because of course, that's a red state. They make it very hard for people to vote by mail. As we've kind of rolled out the messaging, as we've been working on this project over the last 2 years, oh my God, 2 months. It does feel like 2 years. But as we've been working on that for the past 2 months, one of the things that we have also incorporated into our messaging is the importance to create a voting plan. So this can be a part of your voting plan. A lot of people are going to be getting their ballots in the mail. What we want to ensure is that once you get your ballots in the mail, you know what to do with that ballot. And that varies state by state too, because in a lot of cases, you're able to drop it off somewhere that isn't a mailbox. So if you cannot count on the U.S. Postal Service, if you can do something a little bit different in order to ensure that your ballot is counted, we encourage that. So that was something that we had to work into our messaging as well. We did notice that a lot of states are doing drop boxes, which is incredibly helpful. We do that in Los Angeles County. We have vote drop boxes all throughout the county, and they're huge. They're like 5 times the size of a regular mailbox, and they hold a ton of ballots, and they come collect those twice a day. So we encourage, if you do have those in your state, to find those, drop them off there. And in some states, you can drop them off at polling places or at your city or county clerk's office. So we encourage ballot drop off because that's going to make it so much easier to get those votes counted and to get them counted early.
Are you definitely stopping with these states? Is there any chance you would do any more states?
Oh boy.
Like Illinois?
We did consider, we've of course considered a lot of states. I personally wanted to add New Hampshire because I'm from Massachusetts and I grew up 15 minutes away from the New Hampshire border. And there was a New York Times Siena poll today with New Hampshire within the margin of error. And I almost, got in my car to drive off the road just on purpose. It's frightening. This is a close election, and every single state, even the bluest of blue states, we did a California video, for instance, because California is, 1, our home state. We want to be able to share that. But 2, we have about 7 House seats that we flipped in 2018 that we need to defend. And on top of that, try to flip a couple more. That's going to be very difficult because on the presidential level, you have places like Orange County that went fully blue in 2018. We're afraid that it may not stay fully blue because the presidential turns people out who do not turn out in the midterms. So, we have a lot of concerns around different states that we didn't touch. And unfortunately, we just kind of ran out of bandwidth and time. So I wish that we could have added something. But what we will do is continue to try to push the campaign. And on top of that, if you don't see your state when you come to stonewall.vote, which is our site for the initiative, if you don't see your state on there, you can take a look at iwillvote.com. That's not our site, but that's just the site that we recommend. And that will give you all the information that you need to know about your state. So it's all out there. And we wish we could do a little bit of everything, but that's hard to do.
Yeah, I'm sure anyone who hasn't done video editing probably doesn't have a very good sense of just how very much time it takes.
Yeah, it's an undertaking.
The number of hours that go into a 2-minute video is.
Yeah, it's a huge undertaking. Myself and my partner on the project, Alex Mohajer, he's the other co-executive producer, and he and I have just put a lot of energy into it. He's put a ton of effort into the PR aspect of this campaign and just sending it out to organizations and groups that can help amplify the message. So it does. Every little thing that seems simple, every little simple social media campaign actually has a lot of different components and a big team behind it. And I'm very proud of this team. They've worked incredibly hard, and we had a great editor, and
Excellent.
he just he plowed through these 16 videos. So and two Spanish language videos, I should say, that we have Nevada and Arizona, or I'm so sorry, Texas and Arizona have a Spanish language version as well.
So, would you recommend if people want to share these, does it make sense for them to sort of focus on one state, the state they know a lot of people in or something, or should they share all the video?
Oh,
What's
sure.
sort of the best, maybe sort of social media strategy here?
Listen, I love it if you want to share all the videos, but I understand also that if you're bombarding people with a lot of information, that your message can get diluted over time. So really, if you know people in these states, we encourage you to find the states and then share those videos with those people directly. That's actually what I've been doing. I know people in almost all of the states that we've released. And every time we release a video, I send it to those friends, and those friends help amplify the message. When you're talking to voters and when you're talking to people in your life about politics, they're more likely to listen to you because they know you. So it's easier for you to amplify your personal message with people in your network, and then they will amplify it with people in their networks. So, I mean, it's a very old fashioned way of looking at politics, but it's probably the most effective way that political communication works, is when we're having those conversations with the people in our lives, and you trust the people in your life. So if they're sharing a piece of information with you, chances are you're going to pay attention a whole lot more than if you just see something at random. So we definitely encourage that piece of personal participation.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I saw something the other day on Twitter. Right now there's not a lot of door knocking going on, which is usually what would be happening in September and October before a big election. And I think it was Amanda Littman on Twitter said, it wasn't the actual act of knocking the door that was important. It was the conversations that people were having. And you can still find ways to have those conversations even when you're not in the same physical
Yeah.
place. So I think that's absolutely right. That personal connection, people knowing, how you feel about certain issues and why it's important to you and which candidates are going to help support that is really important.
Yeah, I think, when I was growing up in Massachusetts, we're a very crusty, puritanical place. And so the idea of we don't talk about politics, we don't talk about those things. We're trying to really redefine that. I think we should talk about politics. We should talk about these issues. And social media is not the best thing in the world. However, it is kind of great in a way because people are then able to amplify their personal platforms out there, just kind of air it out at large. And I think that has opened up more discussion. So I'm thankful for it in that way. And yeah, we do have to get creative.
Certainly everybody listening is going to know some people in some of these states. There are a lot of people listening who know people in Ohio and Wisconsin, for instance. I know which are two of the states that are on this list. So I think that's great advice to sort of share those directly with people in those states.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I live in Chicago, and I've got Joe Biden signs up, but it's not that important where
Sure.
I live. So I went ahead and just sent yard signs to my parents in Ohio, and they never would have gone and gotten a Joe Biden yard sign. But when it showed up at their house, they put it up, and all of a sudden their neighbors were like, "Oh, we're voting for Biden too," and so it really does spark these conversations.
It totally does. I mean, it's like I said, it's all about the people in your life, and I actually think that's part of why Trump ended up winning in a way, because people saw that other people in their lives were putting up the Trump flags. We have to counter that. We have to put up our own signs and our own flags, and then that lets people in our lives know that it's okay.
And so joining us now in the conversation is Alex Mohajer. Jonathan had mentioned Alex earlier is the co-executive producer of the National Vote at Home initiative. So hi, Alex. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everybody. How's it going? Good morning.
Yeah, great. So I'm glad you could join us. So we were just talking about the importance of personal connections and personal conversations in getting people to vote, to be interested in issues. So I wonder if you could, I know that you've done a lot of work sort of getting the PR piece of this National Vote at Home initiative out there. If you could talk about the way that, playing into people's personal connections, the people they know, how we can get the publicity for this project out using that method.
Yeah, I think that it's really important to remember that there are some people whose minds we're not going to change. And that's just the reality. So I think knowing the difference between who can be moved and who can't is really important. And it's important for our own self-care, and it's important for our well-being. And we're in a really divided time, and people are set in stone. Trump famously said he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and people would still support him. And I sometimes feel that that's true now, because it's bombshell after bombshell after bombshell, and some people are immovable. So knowing who can be moved is really important ahead of this election. And we are looking at people who either didn't show up in 2016 or who voted third party, who we can now sort of wave our hands at and be like, hey, we need you guys to come on board now. Like this is the time. The time is now. And if you really think about the fact that it was only 77,000 people that decided the 2016 election in 3 states, that's kind of like who we're looking at. If we can build on the coalition that Hillary Clinton had and build it by 77,000. And so the way that we do that is really talking to people that we know are already on our side, the people that we know care about the same things that we care about, and making sure that they're registered to vote and that they are aware of how to vote and that they have a plan to vote. And so we're really proud of this project, because we think that it's a way to reach out to the LGBTQ community. We know that LGBTQ voters, they agree with us on policy and on things the majority of the time, but a lot of LGBTQ voters don't turn out. So can we get a few more queer people to show up to the polls? And using your social networks with your family, your friends, the people that you know that are in those states is part of the way we reach out and try to affect the outcome of the election. And I'm really proud of what we're doing. And
I want to add to what you just said, Alex, because think about between 2016 and now, all of the people who have turned 18. You have these 18 to 21-year-olds who were not voting in 2016, who have seen what has happened in the country. They're seeing what's happening with climate change. They're seeing that the West is on fire. They're seeing a racial reckoning that is kind of defining the young years of their lives. And they want to do something about it. So I'm heartened by the idea that political polling tends to grab likely voters based on, who voted in past elections, and they don't understand the power of the young people. Gen Zers are one of the most politically charged generations I think we've ever experienced. My little sister is a Gen Zer, and she and all of her friends are actively out there. If they're not working on campaigns, they're at least voting and pressuring the people in their lives to vote. And that's a very exciting shift as well.
Agreed.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I was just reading that, for Gen Z, it's not as important sort of who the candidate is, that they really care about issues, things like climate change, gun safety. There are issues that are really driving Gen Z. And so it doesn't really matter necessarily who's at the top of the ticket or something. What matters is getting them engaged and getting them out to vote.
Definitely.
100%. Gen Z is going to save us all.
Yeah.
Someone's got to.
My God, I'm so proud of them. It makes me just so happy, especially to have someone I love in my family who's part of that generation and who absolutely personifies that idea that they do care.
It makes me almost a little bit jealous. I as an politically active millennial, and I know that Jonathan will agree.
Yeah, totally.
I'm Gen X, so
yeah, but
I don't know why the millennials get such a bad rap. Although I will say that we oversaw huge advancements in civil rights and the election of the first Black president and marriage equality. And so we're not totally useless. But,
no. But one of the things I think that we kind of, I don't know, I'm going to stumble over this, so you might want to edit this part out. But one of the things that I think that we neglected to do is something that I'm seeing a shift in among millennials and Gen Xers and Gen Zers, people who thought that we could solve the issues with electing certain people. We elected Barack Obama, and great, Obama fixed it. We're good. We get past marriage equality. Now the gays are good. That's not the way it goes. Now we really need to make sure that we're working on issues, that we're working to push the people that we've elected to office, and that we continue to build the bench behind them. So I think that that's changed in the last 5 years because we started to see that deficit. We started to see it, while Obama was still president. So finally, I think our generations, all three of us, are kind of changing how that's going.
Yeah. All right. So tell everybody how they can find the videos for the National Vote at Home initiative and share them widely. And if they can get you like 1 billion shares, will you do Illinois?
Oh, listen. Yes. Okay.
We this was so much work. I mean, it's been a lot of work. People.
I know.
We've been doing this we did this on a $500 budget. And we are unpaid. We're volunteers, and it's been such a great deal of work. And 16 states was a lot of states. I would love for us to expand, but I think that we need a vacation after this.
Fair enough. And we really don't need to get Illinois. I don't have any good arguments for why Illinois would be added, except that I'm here.
We almost expanded to New Hampshire, but if anyone wants to find our videos and support us, you can find us at stonewall.vote. On Instagram and Twitter, we are at Stonewall Dems. On Facebook, we are Stonewall Democratic Club. On YouTube, we're youtube.com/Stonewall Democrats. Right, Jonathan?
Correct.
All right. Excellent. We'll put all those links on our website so people can find them all from there as well. And certainly, like I said, we have tons of people who are listening who know people in Ohio and Wisconsin. So I definitely expect those videos for you to all go and share.
Did you guys hear that Kanye West is off the ballot in Wisconsin?
Great.
I did.
It's great. He is not making the ballot in many, many places where I think that they anticipated that would foul things up. So I'm very thankful for that.
He also didn't make the ballot in Illinois, but again, it wouldn't have mattered.
You never know. We can't take anything for granted. You never know.
This is true. Well, Jonathan and Alex, thank you both for joining me on the podcast today. This was a really fun conversation, and I just think this is a great project. I'm really excited about it.
Thank you, Kelly. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kelly. It's good to see you again.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you for listening to Two Broads Talking Politics, part of the Dimcast Podcast Network. Our theme song is called Are You Listening off of the album Elephant Shaped Trees by the band Immunuri, and we're using it with permission of the band. Our logo and other original artwork is by Matthew Weflin and was created for use by this podcast. You can contact us at twobroadstalkingpolitics@gmail.com or on Twitter or Facebook at Two Broads Talk. You can find all of our episodes at twobroadstalkingpolitics.com or anywhere podcasts are found.